So we've been learning about the fusiform face area, a region that seems to specifically process the invariant features of faces. But before we see how that area is hooked up to a wider network of brain regions to extract information from the face, let's consider just what kinds of information faces present. So obviously, one of the most obvious things that faces present to us are identities, right? So people have different faces and we can recognize people. We might know this person from their face, right? But faces have lots of other information. In particular, consider the eyes. We know that eyes, of course, can be moved and the direction of gaze can be changed. And it's often the case that what a person is looking at is what they're paying attention to. So we can make inferences about what this person is attending to from their direction of eye gaze. Now notice, attention is something that can be controlled internally as well. This person might be looking in one direction but really paying attention to something else, perhaps that they're not even looking at. So that's called covert attention. But generally speaking, what people are looking at is what they're thinking about. So notice right away, we can now start to decipher what people might be thinking about, some of their mental states, just from some cues from the face, in this case, direction of eye gaze. When people are looking into each other's eyes, this would be an example of what's called joint attention, although joint attention is most often associated with an educational context. So for example, when teacher and learner, they check each other's attention so as to make sure they're focusing on the same object. And so joint attention really is sort of like a triangle of attention. But the two have to constantly monitor each other's attention to make sure that they both know that they are jointly paying attention to some third object. But again, this idea of attention, we can make inferences about attention from cues from the face, namely a direction of eye gaze. Of course, faces also express states of desire, so we can make inferences about the state of desire of this kid. Not only is the kid likely thinking about what he's looking at, but of course the tongue adds a little kicker here. This child seems to be in an intense state of desire. So desire is a mental state. We can't see mental states, but we can infer their existence, and facial cues help us make inferences about mental states. Intentions are a kind of mental state. What are you planning to do, right? So this gentleman playing chess here maybe was looking at some pieces in the corner and will begin to reach for those pieces, right? So he was planning to make a move, and what we are looking at is often related to what our upcoming intentions are going to be, and then we act on intentions. So again, these are mental states that we can't see, but we can make inferences about mental states based on cues from the face. Of course, faces also have emotional expressions. We saw desire earlier, but we have other kinds of emotional expressions: happiness, fear, anger, and these are important social signals. So it's important for me to understand a fear face, right? Because whatever it is that is producing this face in another person, it is in my interest to understand what that thing is in the environment, because it might harm me as well. Right, so these emotional expressions are important teachers for young people growing up in a culture. Kids learn about the world in part through associating different emotional expressions with things in their environment. Anger is real important, because if you're seeing this angry face in your vicinity, you're going to want to possibly prepare for this person's near future behavior, right? So angry people can be aggressive. And so again, it's an important signal to guide behavior. You want to be prepared when people are expressing certain kinds of emotions. Here we see some unfortunate individuals here contemplating their near future, and here we just wanted to emphasize that emotional expressions are a dynamic feature of a face. So each of these individuals would have invariant aspects of their face, right, related to their identity, who they are as persons, but they can each generate dynamic emotional expressions. And so these are changeable aspects of a face that convey certain signals about their internal states. And finally, faces have biographies, right? So we know lots of people, and their face is an important thing we can recognize, but then lots of folks, we have all kinds of information about them. So we know their name, we know their personalities and their relationship to ourselves, and et cetera. We might have autobiographical memories with them, and some of that information is often used to make categorizations of people. A simple one is friend or foe, right? So faces have a huge amount of information. They can tell us identities, and we can access information about these individuals. We can approach them or avoid them based on their alliances and shifting coalitions. Emotional expressions tell us about current states of individuals. Other features of faces like eye gaze can help us make inferences about other mental states like desire and what they're thinking about and what their intentions might be. So faces are a rich source of information. So we would predict that in the brain, the areas of the brain that are processing faces are going to be hooked up to other areas in the brain to help extract all of the rich information that we can get from a face.